Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM. And if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the chat at the moment, the links to our social media are coming up on the screen now, including things like our Patreon, where you can help support us here at the channel and receive exclusive content. And today I'm going to be answering one of those questions that has been asked to me time and time again, especially more recently under the current goings on in the UK. And that of course is, as I've got my lorry license to be able to drive this thing, why have I stopped? And why am I not now running out to drive lorries? And there's a couple of reasons behind this, and I thought there's enough to actually talk about lorry driving to make a whole thing and to address some of the things. For those of you who are outside the UK, currently, at the time of shooting this video, there is a fuel crisis. And what I mean to say is the newspapers said there was a fuel crisis, and now everybody has gone out and panic bought fuel, which has led to there actually being a shortfall in fuel. Before this happened, there wasn't actually a massive shortfall in fuel. There were a few garages, particularly one well-known brand, who had gone, we're a bit short because they were short of drivers. And if you remember last year, worldwide, we had the huge toilet paper shortage. People didn't actually need to buy lots of toilet paper, but panic bought it, which then led to be a massive shortage of toilet paper. And that is precisely what has now happened with fuel. Because lots of people have panicked, we have now created a situation for ourselves. And this is very annoying when particularly we're about to disappear off on a driving holiday. So now that is a small issue. But it kind of shows part of the power the media has over all of us when they say something like, oh, there's a fuel shortage, and everybody panics. And this comes down to this whole thing of, well, there's a lack of drivers. And yes, this is a thing. Particularly since Brexit happened, we are down on lorry drivers. And this brings up the big question, why are there not more lorry drivers, and why am I not driving lorries? Well, first and foremost, I never intended to be a lorry driver. I got my license purely to drive this thing, and then the other big one over there. That's why I went through and did my license. I bought the fire engine and I wanted to drive it around. It is plated to weigh 11 tons in weight, and there's no getting around it. In order to drive a vehicle this heavy, you need to get your HGV license. In the UK, that works on 3 tiers. You have C1, which is a vehicle up to 7.5 tonne, and this is what a lot of drivers who got their license before, I think, 90 something, and have a grandfather rights have, allowing them to drive small lorries. Then you have C, which is a rigid lorry, basically something like this, anywhere up from 7.5 tons up to more than that, 30 something I think. And that is a vehicle that doesn't have a trailer, has wheels and less than 9 seats, basically. So it's your big kind of curtain sider, flatbed, those kind of things. And then we have C plus E, E being trailer. So that's C being large vehicle, E being trailer, and that takes you up to 44 tons, and obviously it allows you to do trailers, which currently I cannot do. In order to combat the shortage of drivers to be able to drive lorries, the UK government has recently announced plans that they're going to change the way the test works. Instead of getting your C licence and then having to drive for a bit and then being able to upgrade yourself to C plus E, you'll go straight in at C plus E. Get your trailer license. But in order to speed up the process, they won't bother with the complex things like coupling up to a trailer or reversing with a trailer, which to me seems like that's kind of vital points of being able to drive with a trailer. Driving it in a straight line down the road is all fine and well. It's when you get to your destination you need to back up or disconnect to get another trailer. It would seem to be kind of the crucial part. For instance, with my license, I'm quite content that I could drive a trailer. Reversing a trailer, well actually I can do that because I've had experience with tractors. Uncoupling and recoupling, that's the thing I would probably need some assistance with. But there we go. So the reason I'm not driving lorries is, yes, I didn't mean to. Also, it's doing this YouTube thing basically has become a full-time career for me. This is eating up a lot of my time. And if I was to jump back in the cab of a lorry, I realistically wouldn't be able to put out the amount of content that we've done. And for regular viewers, you'll know that our content has kind of become a bit more sporadic recently because we've been so busy running off shooting content this way and everywhere. We have amassed a lot of content. So realistically, I can't jump back in and do that. The other problem I have is because I did pick up lorry driving is you have to do something called CPC. Now this is your driver competence. And this is basically showing that you know how to safely tie down a load, different types of loads, where they should be on your lorry, the different types of strapping, whether you should use a pole, ratchet straps or a chain to secure your load, and looking around and make sure nobody's kind of climbed underneath your lorry to get a ride across the port. Mine has now expired. And so in order to drive lorries commercially, I would now have to reapply, pay the money, sit the course and redo that. And frankly, that's not something that I have the disposable income at the moment to actually put aside to do the course to be able to once again drive commercially. But the problem's more deep-rooted than just me not wanting to do it. We have a whole generation of people who don't seem to really want to drive lorries anymore. It's a lot of the old boys and not many younger people coming through. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. Chiefly, I think it's from the way that lorry drivers are perceived. Back in the day, a lorry driver was a lot more of a kind of a grand career. It was something important, whereas today it's kind of looked down upon as people driving those big trucks getting in the way. And that's part of why I don't want to do it anymore. The reaction towards a lorry of somebody trying to go about and do their job to deliver goods, which at the end of the day is for you, the consumer, is terrible. I've parked my lorry somewhere and people are giving me grief that it's in the way. It's like, well, yes, I appreciate that, but you can still get past. But I need to drop this off here. This is a delivery. It's also the fact that there's nowhere to really park, ever. You take deliveries to a shop. My local corner shop, just down the road from me, that frequently has a lorry parked outside, but there isn't actually a dedicated area. It has to park in the load, causing an obstruction for traffic. And that's just more stress. And that also ties into frequently. When I was driving, I worked for agencies. And so I was sent to different companies all over. And I appreciate as an agency driver, I didn't know the routes and that I was often set on the routes that nobody else wanted. But so often you are sent on absolutely ridiculous trips that should not have a lorry. There was one drop I went to semi-regularly in Wales. And to drive down, my wing mirror was bouncing off the wooden wall and my other wing mirror was in the hedgerow. And then once I'd got to my destination, I had to perform about a 1,000,000 point turn to be able to shimmy the lorry around to come back out. It's the kind of place that just, the lorry does go, so we'll send a lorry, but it just makes life so much more stressful. And that's what it is. There's so much stress associated with it because in order to drive a lorry, we have a thing called a tachograph, which records how long you've been driving. And the UK currently and European laws are you can drive for 4.5 hours and then you must have a 45-minute break. And then you may drive for another 4.5 hours. At the end of which, that's your driving day over. You can, twice every 2 weeks, have another 45-minute break and drive for a further hour. And that's a kind of get you home if you've almost got home. But that does rather limit what you can do. And this is where my big gripe with lorry driving comes in and why I really don't want to, and why I think a lot of people don't want to do it. There is nowhere realistically to pull up and have your break. If you look continentally, they have things, particularly in France, called airs. And they're about every 10 kilometers, there is a pull-off off your main motorway, there is a shower block and a toilet, and it's significantly set back from the road. Everywhere, every literally 10 kilometers, especially on the main roads, well, on your big roads, especially going towards the port. And this is so your lorry driver can get to the end of their driving time and pull over, and they have at least facilities. What do we have in the UK? Nothing. You're lucky if you have a lay-by that's spread out at some random distance. They're not even regular set-outs. You've got no idea if it's there. And if you are driving, 9 times out of 10, it will be full of other lorries. And then they stink. They're full of rubbish because 90% of them don't have bins, all the bins haven't been emptied. And then everybody has had to go to the loo there. Truck stops do exist and they're a thing. But thinking just around here in Suffolk, there's one at the Orwell Bridge, the Orwell truck stop, and there's one in Bury St Edmunds. That's it for truck stops, for places you can actually pull over and have a good night's sleep and somewhere to eat. That's rubbish. And the truck stops we have at motorway services will cost a fortune, unless your company has signed up to pay for them, and always will stink. Always, across the board, they'll smell. Which brings me on to the other point. Driving lorries overnight, tramping, is something we get paid for. But for the inconvenience of being away from home, for the fact that it's not particularly comfortable, and for me it wasn't my truck, you get paid something around £20, or at least when I was doing it. Now this is all fine and well, because £20 for a night's kit, yeah. But a lot of the trucks I was driving wouldn't have a freezer or a fridge or any way to put food, so which means I'm stuck at buying food at motorway services. So by the time I bought my dinner, I've parked up, gone to dinner, had a shower, woken up in the morning, got some breakfast, that's all my overnight money evaporated on horrendous motorway services, which just makes that I don't really want to be away from home for nothing. Like sleeping in the back of a lorry. More to the point, they will expect you to do your bare minimum break. So you park up, start the clock running and have your, say, 9 hours break, and then hop in the driving seat and continue. Which means that if you've been driving and made an early start, and you've driven for your 9 hours plus your break, say you're finished at, I don't know, maybe 6 in the afternoon on a summer's day, or maybe earlier. You've then expected to stop, go to sleep, get your break, and then start again at some god-awful morning hour. And it's just not very pleasant. It's just silly. And then when we consider things like driving into London, as I'm sure most of you in the UK will be aware, and for those of you outside the UK, is a terrible place to try and drive. It's an even worse place to try and park. And if you consider that your vehicle is quite large, and where you're trying to park has had no thought whatsoever about the fact that you might have a large lorry trying to make a delivery, it becomes quite challenging. And then you have the concept of not only are you struggling to find someone to actually get off the road to offload, somewhere in this hub, because it will have taken you a good 2 hours to drive into wherever you're going to, and then a good hour or so to drive around to find places, you suddenly realise that your actual 4.5 hours of driving time, and legally you now have to take a break. Where can you park? There's nowhere. So you've got to try and hope that somewhere that you've managed to offload, you can sit there for 45 minutes after you've offloaded, because you can't have your break and work at the same time. So you've got to offload your lorry and then have 45 minutes worth of break. It just doesn't work. Anywhere, any capital city or large town, there is nowhere for your lorries. And it's just a huge oversight that we've had moving forward. Yes, lorries are hugely important to our daily life. Without lorries moving post, food, supplies, fuel, society just falls apart. That everything we have and everything we kind of appreciate at home, and the computer age of being able to order stuff and just expecting stuff to be in a shop, it all comes through lorries, and we don't really have the facilities or the infrastructure to support the rules and regulations that we put in for lorries. And this makes it, well, far less appealing. I really enjoyed driving lorries. I really enjoyed going around the country seeing things. But knowing that you have to plan a journey, or that I'm not going to get home tonight because there's nowhere to pull over. My options are, with one employer, that I have to stop in a motorway services. And my timings go, well, if I stop in a motorway services, I can stop here and spend the night here and have to drive home tomorrow. Or if I could stop somewhere else, I'd be close to home and maybe someone could get me. But no, looking at your system going, well, I'm going to be away for a few nights. I have to either stop, I've started in the afternoon. I've got 3 hours left to drive. My options are pull over at a services, say Cambridge services, and stop there, and waste several hours of progress because there isn't another suitable place to stop. Poor example, because there are places further up the road. But it gives you the idea. You'll find yourself having to stop early and waste time because an employer wants you to stop in a services, because laybys are considered unsafe, because who knows who might turn up in a lay-by which is unlit by the side of the road to see what kind of fancy cargo you're carrying. And that just makes it all the more unpleasant. Plus the risk of various places that you've gone to, that I drove to, they always said make sure you leave the lorry locked, you don't leave the tailgate down, because people will come and steal stuff on the back of it, which just makes you a huge target. It's far more stressful than it should be. We don't have places big enough to take them, and with the rules and regulations that we have at the moment, and they do make sense, the fact that we mandate you must stop driving after 4.5 hours and have a break, and that you can only do 9 hours in a day to stop people becoming overtired and causing potential risks and death and all kinds of scary stuff by having crashes. We don't have the infrastructure in this country to help support that. it makes it a real hindrance, and it just adds more stress to already quite a stressful job, because an 18-ton lorry can do an awful lot of damage. And that's the other major point, is there is a huge lack of understanding from other motorists to just what a lorry will do. They don't understand how much more time it will need to stop and how much more space it needs on the road to manoeuvre. The amount of times that I have tried to straddle 2 lanes indicating to say turn right or turn left, and that some motorist has tried to squeeze up the inside, unaware that a reason I'm taking up 2 lanes is because it's a long vehicle and I need that room to swing. Or they'll sit right behind you, right behind your back end, and you know that your back end will kick out as you go. So you've then got to try and hope that they're going to move or they'll understand. And particularly in London, this is terrible, and cyclists in London, how more people don't get killed, I do not know. You'll be sitting at a traffic light ready to turn left, and there will be cyclists with their own traffic lights. Their traffic lights will go red and mine will go green for me to turn across their path. And they still keep coming. And it's terrifying because people don't understand the space that a lorry needs in order to operate. And yes, I know there are lots of problems, like the speed of which a lorry travels. It should be limited to 56 miles an hour, and that's another big problem on the roads. There are lorries that have marginally different interpretations of 56 miles an hour. So we have these long examples where lorries are overtaking each other, which is frustrating to absolutely everybody else on the road, causing unnecessary tailbacks. And realistically, in the modern world with GPS tracking and GPS speedos, we should be able to set everything to be 56 miles an hour and should be able to get rid of this, which would just mean that the roads in the UK would flow so much easier. But that's it. There are too many annoying issues at the moment with lorry driving, and it's something that gets blamed all the time on, oh, lorry drivers don't want it, oh, people don't want to do this. Things could be made a lot easier, and that would encourage more people to drive lorries. Because I love it. I love driving around, seeing the countryside, meeting people. That was great. It was just all these other things that just made it stressful and just not worth the everyday aggro. You know, that and the repeated thing of being sent places that you can't take a lorry. It just, there was too much stress with it. And at the end of the day, you found yourself being so exhausted. And I know lots of people do very difficult jobs and hard, long days. And I know that several of you will be going, oh, you pathetic youngster, you don't know what you're talking about. And no, I appreciate that I could go back to lorry driving if I wanted to. But if we want to encourage more people to do it, and we want to be able to look at these supposed shortages of stuff, there are lots of things that can be done to improve the whole lorry driving experience, to make it better to be a lorry driver. And realistically, if we want to keep people moving goods around, that's the kind of stuff that needs to happen before the automated thing will come in. I mean, I don't see lorry driving realistically lasting more than 10 years before we have automated systems doing it, or one driver with several lorries in tow. I'm not going back to lorry driving. I don't want to go back to lorry driving. And remember, things like the fuel crisis, that's something that somebody's engineered, and we've all followed suit to actually make something happen. So let's not blame the lorry drivers on this, and perhaps think about giving them a bit more respect. Remember, everything that we do basically depends on them. So that's it. That brings us to the end of this video. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to me ramble on about the life of being a lorry driver and where I think things could really do with improving. Of course, let me know in the comments if you think I'm onto something or if you think I'm barking up entirely the wrong tree. And with that, thank you very much for watching. By the time you guys watch this one, we should be on our cheap car challenge on lemons. And hopefully we'll be seeing some of you guys this weekend up in the Yorkshire Dale. So do remember, do come along and say hi. We would love to see you. And then I am probably leading a small group of cars, or anybody wants to, on Sunday down to the Eight-Dale Railway for their gala. So hope to see you guys there. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe. And it's a lot more fun driving this around when there's no kind of work associated with it, and it's just fun.